Today, my dad and I are going to show you guys how to build a trailer from the ground up. We started off this project by cutting out the trailer frame. The entire frame is made out of 2-inch square tubing, 3/16 inches thick. And the final dimensions of this trailer are 10 feet by 6'7". Using our Evolution chop saw, making quick work of all these cuts. Go ahead and check them out. They make some of the best metalworking tools on the market. So you'll see that the frame started out with two 10-foot pieces going up the driveway, and the pieces in between are 4'8", putting our center to center at 4'10", because that is the center to center for our axle brackets. So before starting your project, you want to make sure to find the center to center on your axle. This saw makes cutting out those 45-degree angles real easy. Another thing you want to take into account is having the same wall thickness for all of your tubing. I have several different sizes laying around the shop, and you want to make sure they're all the same size, that way the trailer is nice and balanced. And if you guys haven't been here before, this is Father-Son DIY Garage. My dad and I, we build projects around the house, metalworking, woodworking, and just DIY projects. If you guys like what you see, give us a like and subscribe, and comment down below, I subscribe. Alright you guys, that's all the pieces for the main frame. Now we're going to take these pieces over to the welding table, put a bevel on them, and start welding this up. Putting a bevel on your pieces is super important because rather than filling over the top, you're filling in between the two pieces, making a stronger connection. I go ahead and put my grinder with a sanding wheel at a 45-degree angle and make sure to hit every single end of every piece. And because the driveway isn't flat at all, we're going to go ahead and put this inside the garage on some jack stands. We only had these two jack stands laying around the garage, so rather than going out spending $100, $200, went ahead and welded it up. Just some little DIY stands. See how they work. Just used a steel plate, a pipe, a nut, some all thread, and some angle iron I had laying around the shop. So one of the most important things about this project is that it comes out nice and square and level. So by doing that, we're putting our 4 jack stands inside the garage. Putting 2 pieces of scrap metal across those jack stands. Making sure that they're level across. Then we can start putting the frame for our trailer on top of those. Our 2 10-footers there. So to start, I made sure to set all the jack stands to the same height, and then I made sure my pieces going across, holding up the frame, are nice and level across. Now, we got to make sure that we're nice and level this way. And using the homemade stands with the nut and the threaded rod, actually made it to where I can get these nice and level. Once that was done, it was time to put the 2 end pieces on. What I do is I clamp a piece of longer steel to my cut piece. That way it sits floating right above and gets you a nice perfect fit up. You'll see it's pretty out of square to start. We're gonna have to fiddle with it a little bit to get it nice and square. This part of the project is extremely important, so I made sure to double, triple, quadruple check it. Then it was time to weld up the frame. Started off by tack welding all of the sides. So all the corners are tack welded up, so we can go ahead and take these clamps off, check for square, and then put a full weld on everything. So with all my corners tack welded up, went ahead and checked for square. And one of the most important measurements is the one diagonally. You want to make sure that these match on both sides, because that'll tell you that your trailer is nice and square and not cockeyed. Then I went ahead and put a full weld on. Started off by burning what you would call kind of a root pass, just a straight drag. Then went over the top of that with some circles. Burn a fat weld over those two pieces. And I went ahead and did that on all of the corners. And did those vertical joints as well. And we even added some little triangles in each of the corners to give it some more strength. And with the main frame done, it was time to put our cross pieces in. Using the same process. And this cross piece sits about 2'6" from the front of the trailer. And you want to be real strategic about your next two pieces because you want them to line up on where your brackets for your leaf spring line up. So make sure you do your homework, look at your specs for your trailer kit, for your leaf springs, axles, and the brackets. We're just going ahead and tack welding those on and then burning a full weld. And we even put a piece of angle iron on the back part of the trailer just to give it some more support. And the next step of the project was to do the A-frame part of the trailer, also known as the trailer tongue. And for our main piece, we're using a piece of 1/4 inch 2x2 square tubing. Cut that to about 5'6". And we left an overhang over the front of the trailer of about 3 feet. And for our side pieces, went ahead and cut a 67.5 degree angle out of those. Little tricky of a cut on the chop saw, but we got it done. And there it is, all fit up. Went ahead and put a nice bevel on those front pieces on both sides. Then we're able to fit it back up. And those white lines are where I'm going to be cutting these pieces off. And then tack welding on those pieces. And you want to make sure you burn a full weld on every point that it touches the main frame. Then we went ahead and sanded down some welds on 2 of our cross pieces because that's where we are going to install the brackets for our axle.
Okay, now it's time to weld on our brackets for our leaf springs, and manufacturer spec says 24 7/8 inches apart. So, what is that? We've got our center point right here on the trailer, and we're going to measure 12 7/16 to the center here, and 12 7/16 to the center there, and that is where we're going to weld these brackets on.
You want to make sure to double and triple check these measurements when laying them out because this has to be dead perfect.
Make sure our brackets are lined across the trailer. We're going to use this 1/2 inch rod and we're going to insert it into the holes of each bracket. And this is going to ensure when we weld the brackets to the trailer, they're going to be perfectly aligned.
So just like everything else, went ahead and put a tack weld on all 4 corners. Then went ahead and put a full weld.
Now that we have our brackets welded to the frame, it's time to install the leaf springs.
You guys want to make sure you stay clear of those cheap Amazon socket adapters. This was the first use on this one. So we went ahead and got out the ratchet and did it by hand. You just want to make sure you snug this up so it doesn't wobble. And remember that the side with the two brackets goes on the back side. Each kit might come a little different, so we're going to go ahead and link this kit down below for you guys in case you want to follow along with this build. Then we did the exact same thing on the other side. Then it was time to mount our axle to the leaf springs. And we got our bracket and our U-bolts out. And this is why it's so important to have the center to center of the trailer width perfectly aligned, because this has to be dead on. Tightening those up with the ratchet. And it looks like Pops ended up stripping one of those bolts off. So we had to go back and cut it off with the angle grinder, but ended up working out just fine. And once we hit it with the ratchet nice and snug, we went ahead and got our torque wrench out and torqued it to 50 foot-pounds. That's what the specs recommended. And it was time to flip this thing over. Alright, you guys, now it's time to flip this trailer over. I don't know how we're going to do it, but let's see what happens. Now let him go down the street. So we made our first attempt at flipping this over. We tried doing it long ways, putting it over our head, and that just wasn't working out. It was too heavy, too dangerous. Maybe we got to hit the gym, I don't know. But we figured doing it horizontally would work out much better, and it did, because there was a lot less weight over our heads. Hold. Did it fall on you? Okay, wait. Ready? Drop it. 1, 2.
It's a fun project, huh?
Why, Joe? Why do you get me into this stuff?
I see a few more gray hairs already.
Jeez, I'm going bald.
So after we had it flipped over, went ahead and put the tires on. These are just the tires that came with the kit. I don't know, maybe we'll see how they do. Maybe we'll upgrade them later on down the road. I want to make sure the tapered end of the nut is on the inside when you put this tire on. You also want to make sure you tighten the bolts in a cross pattern rather than a circle. Then it was time to take this thing back to the garage. And the next day, when we had some fresh light, went ahead and burned welds on all the stuff on the other side. Then it was time to extend the width of the trailer. We're extending it about 9 inches, which is about to the outside of the tire. So you'll see us welding up all those pieces on the table first before we put them on the trailer. We then clamp some pieces of tubing across the top of the frame so we can mount these prefab pieces. This is the best way that you can get these nice and straight, as you'll see here. So we're going to be doing this for all 4 pieces that we prefabbed, giving them a tack weld and then welding them on. So this was the shape we were going for on the wheel wells, some 45-degree angles. We went ahead and cut some pieces 16 inches long with 45-degree angles on both sides. Then we made some straight cuts, 13.5 inches long. And depending on the size of your frame and the size of your wheels, this might be a little different for each project. But we got that first one tack welded up and then proceeded to fit up all the other ones on top of it. That way we knew they were all exactly the same. Went ahead and cleaned off all those welds, give it a nice smooth look. Then we started to assemble. We cut some 7.5-inch pieces in between. And this is all 1-inch square tubing. Check out how sturdy that is. Took it over to get a nice fit up. And the recommended distance is 3 to 4 inches. We got 3.5 there on the top. And the recommended for the sides is a minimum of 2 inches. And we got about 2 3/4 to 3 inches on both sides. So went ahead and welded it on. Made sure to protect that tire. Then after that was welded on, we went ahead and cut out some sheet metal, a 1/16 inch thick. And that's what we're going to use to coat that framing. Just cutting it out with the cutting wheel on the grinder. Then we go ahead and tack weld that on. Try to fold it down as nice as possible. Left it long so that way we can cut it off later on. Went ahead and put a bunch of clamps on, that way you could make that nice and tight to the frame. And here we are putting that back panel on, just put it up against it, traced it out. Went ahead and cut it out with the grinder. Then we fit it up, tack welded on. And that was it for the wheel wells. It was time to put the trailer jack on. This is a 2,000-pound trailer jack and it's nice and simple to install. Just a couple brackets and bolts and nuts. Want to make sure you torque these to 20 pounds minimum.
Well, Joe put this handle on wrong. It'll be a little hard to get that wheel down on the ground. A handle like this. Once again, Dad to the rescue.
Nice. 2,000-pound trailer jack. We'll make sure to link this down below if you guys want to use it. It's pretty cool. It's got 2 tires. We'll see how it goes. Give you guys an update in a few months. Then it was time to install the trailer coupler. Went ahead and laid out some holes. We're going to be bolting this on with some 1/2-inch bolts. And when you do this, you want to make sure you use some heavy-duty bolts. We're using grade 8 bolts, 3 inches long, with some heavy-duty lock nuts. Starting off those holes with a 1/4 inch bit. Then we're going to go back with a unibit and make those holes a 1/2 inch. And you want to make sure you got these holes nice and centered up. That way the bolt reaches the other side. Got those bolts in. Put our locking nuts on the other side. And this thing was good to go. Sure. The more times, yes.
Look at that. All right, guys, that's how we build a trailer from the ground up.
This is the first video of many videos to come. We're going to be turning this trailer into a camper. The next thing we're going to do is frame up all the walls, put the subfloor on. So stay tuned for that video.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.